This story is titled, My Girlfriend Cheated, saying I'd never find someone like her. A year later, I'm dating a model who had a crush on me since high school. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey Reddit! I've been wanting to get this off my chest for a while now. So I was scrolling through here the other day and saw this post about some dude whose girlfriend was straight up cheating on him and didn't even care. Like, she was totally honest about it, as if cheating was no big deal. It made me think about my own ex and all the crap I went through, so figured I'd share my story too. This happened about 2 years ago. I met my ex, let's call her Mia, through one of those dating apps. Not the hookup ones, but one where people supposedly want actual relationships. I was 33, male, she was 30. We matched, started chatting, and man, we just clicked right away. Hard to explain, but we just got each other, you know? Same sense of humor, same interests, could talk for hours without getting bored. After a few weeks of texting and calls, I finally asked her out on a real date. Not gonna lie, I was nervous because she was gorgeous. Like head-turning beautiful. I'm not saying I'm ugly or anything, I think I'm decent looking. But she was in a different league for sure. I remember thinking I probably wouldn't look for anything serious with her because, well, super hot girls usually have tons of options. Didn't want to get hurt. She showed up to our first date at this cool taco place downtown. And holy crap, guys, pictures didn't do her justice. She had this long dark hair, perfect skin, and was wearing this simple black dress that looked like it was made for her. I thought I was going to make a fool of myself, but somehow managed to act normal. The date was awesome. Just confirmed everything I felt during our online convos. We started seeing each other more often, and things got official pretty quick. Like, within a month, we were exclusive. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, but she seemed genuinely into me. One thing that was always in the back of my mind was how much attention she got from other guys. She'd tell me about it sometimes, even when we were together. Dudes would hit on her right in front of me, or she'd get messages from random guys on social media. At first, I wasn't worried about it. I trusted her and thought she was really into me. Looking back, I was being pretty dumb, but that's how I felt at the time. Just enjoying being with her and didn't want to be the jealous, insecure boyfriend. I should mention I work as a mechanical engineer at this company that makes industrial equipment. Not the most exciting job in the world, but it pays well. And I'm good at it. My boss, Derek, is a total tool, though. One of those guys who takes credit for everyone else's work and throws people under the bus whenever something goes wrong. He's about 45, divorced twice, drives an Audi he can't really afford, and thinks he's God's gift to women and the engineering world. Total corporate climber who doesn't give a crap about anyone but himself. Anyway, Mia and I fell into a pretty good routine. We'd spend weekends together, take turns staying at each other's places, all that couple stuff. She worked as a part-time model and influencer, which meant her schedule was all over the place. Sometimes she'd have photo shoots or events that would keep her busy for days, then she'd have a whole week with nothing going on. I never questioned it because, hey, that's the industry, right? The first 3 months were pretty much perfect. We'd go out to dinner, watch movies, go hiking sometimes. She even came to one of my softball games with my work team, which surprised me because she didn't strike me as the sit in the stands and cheer type of girl. That day she met some of my coworkers, but luckily Derek wasn't there. I was actually kind of worried about him meeting her because he's such a creep around attractive women. So our relationship with Mia moved along pretty fast. It's weird looking back now, but at the time everything seemed to be going great. After about 8 months together, I started thinking this might actually be the real deal. We were lying in bed one night after watching some dumb Netflix show, just talking about random stuff like we usually did. I don't even remember how the topic came up exactly, but I kind of floated the idea of getting engaged. Not like a real proposal with me on one knee or anything. Just casually mentioned that I could see us heading in that direction sometime in the not-too-distant future. To my complete surprise, she got super excited about it. Like sat straight up in bed and started talking a mile a minute about ring styles she liked, what kind of wedding she wanted, even what our freaking wedding colors should be. Honestly, I was shocked. I mean, yeah, I brought it up, but I didn't expect her to jump on the idea with that much enthusiasm. I remember thinking, holy crap, this is actually happening, and feeling like I'd won some kind of lottery. This insanely beautiful woman actually wanted to marry me? Regular old me? It was nuts. The next few weeks were awesome. We spent hours looking at apartments online. Her place was tiny and mine was too far from her work, talking about our future together, even possible baby names, which was way ahead of where I was thinking. But I went along with it because I was so happy. I started putting away extra money each paycheck for a ring. Even showed some pictures of styles I was looking at to my buddies at work. Most of them were happy for me, slapping me on the back and making jokes about locking that down and stuff. The usual guy talk, except for Derek, of course. When he overheard us talking about ring shopping during lunch one day, he made this comment like, "Make sure she signs a prenup, Pete. Girls like that always have a backup plan." He had this weird smirk on his face when he said it too. I just brushed it off because Derek's always been a jerk, especially about relationships since his second divorce. But then something changed with Mia. It happened so gradually that at first I didn't really notice, but looking back, I can see it clear as day. It was like someone flipped a switch in her brain or something. It started with little things. She'd take forever to reply to my texts, but when we were together, she was glued to her phone. She'd cancel plans last minute with vague excuses, would show up late to stuff that was important to me. Then it got more obvious. She started making these comments about how I should be treating her better. Expected me to buy her expensive gifts just because. Wanted to go to fancy restaurants every weekend instead of our usual mix of nice places and cooking at home. Would send me links to designer clothes and bags with messages like, "This would look so good on me." When I told her I was trying to save for our future, for the ring she supposedly wanted, she'd say stuff like, "You need to understand that being with me is an investment. Do you know how many guys would kill to be in your position? Who says that to someone they supposedly love?" It was weird, man. Like she'd suddenly decided she was royalty or something, and I should be kissing the ground she walked on. Like she was doing me a favor by being with me. Like, yeah, she's beautiful. I've always known that. But saying it like that, it felt like her ego was creeping up to a level that didn't sit right with me. Like she wasn't just confident, she was starting to believe she was on some untouchable pedestal. It stuck with me for a bit, kept replaying in my head. But as days went on, it started to fade, getting tossed into the weird things she says that I probably shouldn't ignore pile. The worst part was, she completely stopped putting in any effort herself. She never cooked anymore, even though she used to make these amazing pasta dishes. Never suggested date ideas. Was always on her phone when we were together. It was like I was just there to provide stuff for her, and she didn't need to give anything back. I tried talking to her about it once. Asked her if something was wrong, or if I'd done something to upset her. She just got super defensive and turned it around on me, saying I was being too needy and that I should be more confident. Said her ex-boyfriends never needed constant validation, like I apparently did. That hurt. I'm not some insecure teenager, but it's normal to want your girlfriend to actually act like she gives a crap about you, right? After that conversation, I started second-guessing myself. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe this was just what happened in relationships after the honeymoon phase ended. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. The woman I'd fallen for, the one who got so excited about building a future together, seemed to be disappearing more and more each day. And I had no idea why. About a month into this new weird phase of our relationship, I got a promotion at work. Nothing huge or anything, just a step up with some more responsibility and better pay. I was pretty stoked about it because it meant I could save up faster for that ring and our future together. My company was having this dinner thing to celebrate landing some big contract with a client in Japan. It was a whole formal affair where they invited significant others and everything. I thought it would be a good chance for Mia to meet my coworkers properly. Plus, the dinner was at this fancy restaurant downtown that Mia had been dropping hints about wanting to try for weeks. When I told her about it, she got weirdly excited. Like, way more excited than made sense for a boring work dinner. She kept asking questions about who would be there, especially if Derek would be attending. I figured maybe she was just nervous about meeting my boss, so I reassured her that yeah, he was a total jerk, but she didn't need to worry about impressing him or anything. The night of the dinner, I swung by her place to pick her up, and holy crap, guys. She looked absolutely stunning. She'd obviously spent hours getting ready, wearing this tight red dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her makeup was perfect, hair done all fancy, the works. Don't get me wrong, she always looked good, but this was next level. I remember thinking I was the luckiest dude in the world walking in with her. The weird thing was, as soon as we got to the restaurant, she kind of started ignoring me. Like, we'd be in a group conversation, and she wouldn't even look at me when I was talking. She was super friendly with everyone else, though, laughing at all their jokes, even the bad ones, touching their arms when she talked to them, all that flirty stuff. But with me, nothing, just cold. And she kept finding reasons to talk to Derek. At first, I thought she was just being polite, but it got obvious real quick that she was flirting with him. Right in front of me. And Derek, that smug bastard, was eating it up, giving her these looks, standing way too close, even put his hand on her lower back at one point when they were getting drinks from the bar. I was getting more pissed by the minute, but what was I gonna do? Make a scene at a work function? I just tried to ignore it, told myself I was overreacting. Maybe she was just trying to help my career by charming my boss? That's what I kept telling myself anyway. The drive home was tense. She spent the whole time talking about how impressive Derek was, how successful he seemed, how he had such presence. Made me want to puke. She kept bringing up stuff he'd told her about his vacation home in Florida and his investment portfolio. Like, they'd apparently had this whole detailed conversation while I was stuck talking to Dave from accounting about tax write-offs. When we got back to my place, I finally called her out on it. I was like, "What was that all about? You were all over my boss all night." She just laughed this fake little laugh and said, "Are you seriously jealous? Grow up. I was just being friendly. Don't you want your boss to like me?" When I pointed out that friendly doesn't usually involve touching someone's arm while giggling at everything they say, she got all defensive. Started saying I was being controlling and insecure. Turned the whole thing around on me, like I was the problem for even bringing it up. We got into this big fight about it. She kept saying stuff like, "This is exactly why I can't take you places." She even threw in a, "Maybe Derek's successful because he's not so whiny and insecure." That was the first night we ever went to bed angry at each other. Well, I went to bed angry. She just played on her phone for hours with her back to me, like she couldn't care less. After that night, things got even weirder. She started texting all the time but being super secretive about it. Would turn her phone away when I walked by. Started going to the bathroom to take calls. All that classic shady behavior that you see in movies, but think nobody's actually that obvious about cheating. The next weekend, she ditched our plans last minute, saying she had a golden opportunity for a photo shoot that would really boost her portfolio. I was disappointed, but said I understood. I spent that Saturday catching up on chores and playing video games, trying to ignore the weird feeling in my gut that something wasn't right. So I texted one of her model friends to ask how the shoot went, playing the supportive boyfriend. Her friend had no idea what I was talking about. Said there wasn't any shoot she knew of. My stomach dropped. I didn't reply. Just sat there, phone in my hand, staring at the screen like it might somehow change the answer. But the answer was already clear. She wasn't at a shoot. She was somewhere else. When she came back home, I just acted normal, like I wasn't sitting on the knowledge that she had flat out lied to me. She didn't seem off, didn't act guilty or nervous, but something was different. Subtle, like she was hiding something and was just good at covering it up. And then, a week later, she was supposed to meet me for lunch near my office. We'd been planning it for days since our schedules were so busy, meaning her schedule, not mine. And, surprise, surprise, she texted last minute saying she couldn't make it. Again, something about a photo shoot opportunity that came up with some big client that would really help her career. By this point, I was pretty suspicious of these sudden opportunities, which I knew they were lies. I decided to see what she was really up to. I told my team lead I was taking a long lunch and headed out. I didn't even have a plan, really. I just figured I'd drive by her apartment first to see if her car was there. It wasn't. But as I was about to leave, I spotted her pulling into the parking lot of her building. She was all dressed up, way more than for a typical photo shoot where they usually do your makeup and stuff on site. She checked her phone, then got back in her car and pulled out again. I followed her. I know that sounds stalkerish, but what would you do? I kept a few cars between us, feeling like some kind of amateur detective in a bad movie. She drove to this fancy hotel downtown, about a block from my office, parked in the visitor lot and went inside. I parked across the street and just sat there for a while, not sure what to do next. Part of me wanted to go in there and confront her, but what if it really was some work thing? Maybe she was meeting a client or something? After about 20 minutes of me sitting there like an idiot, I noticed Derek's Audi pull into the hotel lot. The only reason I recognized it was because of his stupid vanity plate that says, "Boss Man." I swear, guys like that are so freaking predictable. My stomach dropped. No way this was a coincidence. I got out of my car and crossed the street, not even sure what I was planning to do. I was just walking towards the hotel entrance when I stopped dead in my tracks. There they were, Derek and Mia, coming out of the hotel main doors together, all over each other. He had his arm around her waist. She was laughing at something he said. Then they kissed right there on the sidewalk. Not like a quick peck either, but a full-on makeout session like they were teenagers or something. I ducked behind a parked van so they wouldn't see me. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might throw up right there. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, but there it was, right in front of me. The woman I wanted to marry was cheating on me with my jackass boss. I watched them say goodbye. He handed her something that looked like cash, which she stuffed in her purse before getting into an Uber. Derek straightened his tie, put on his sunglasses, and strutted back toward the office. I literally couldn't move for like 5 minutes. My legs felt like they were made of cement. When I finally got it together, I texted my team lead saying I was sick and needed to go home. No way I could face Derek that afternoon. No way I could focus on work. Just went home and sat in my empty apartment, trying to figure out what the hell to do. I went through all the emotions you'd expect: shock, denial, sadness, anger. I couldn't believe she would do this to me and with my boss of all people. It felt like they'd both teamed up to humiliate me in the worst way possible. I looked back through her texts over the past few weeks and started noticing patterns. All those sudden cancellations and work emergencies lined up perfectly with days when Derek left the office early. All those times she was too tired to hang out matched with days I knew Derek had meetings out of the office. Then I remembered something from the work dinner. I overheard Derek telling someone he was going to Japan next month to finalize the contract with our new client. Mia had mentioned just yesterday how she might have a modeling job in Tokyo around the same time. It was so obvious now. The worst part was realizing that she was probably only with me in the first place to have a stable backup while she pursued richer guys. All that talk about marriage and our future together, was any of it real? Or was I just her safety net, her plan B? I went back to work the next day and tried to act normal, but it was torture. Derek kept making these comments in meetings like, "Pete looks tired today," and "Not everyone has what it takes to make it in this industry." I wanted to jump across the table and strangle him. During lunch, I overheard him on the phone in the break room. He clearly didn't know I was there, grabbing something from the fridge. I heard him say, "Yeah, babe, I'll give you the cash tomorrow. Just make sure you wear that black thing I like." Then he laughed and said, "No, poor sucker thinks you're actually into him." I almost lost it right there, but somehow managed to walk out without him seeing me. Now I had actual proof, from his own mouth, that not only was he sleeping with my girlfriend, but they were both laughing about it behind my back. And he was paying her. I spent the whole day at work planning what I was going to say to Mia. Should I yell? Cry? Act calm? I must have played the conversation out in my head like 50 different ways. All I knew was I needed answers, and I needed to look her in the eye when she gave them to me. When I got home, I texted her asking if she wanted to come over for dinner. Tried to sound normal, like everything was fine. She replied that she was super busy, but could squeeze me in for a couple hours later that night. The way she phrased it made my blood boil, like seeing her boyfriend was some kind of chore she had to check off her to-do list. She showed up around 8:30, looking kind of distracted, kept checking her phone every few minutes while I made us some pasta. I tried to act casual, asking about her day and stuff, but inside I was like a pressure cooker about to explode. We ate dinner with her half paying attention to anything I said. She kept bringing up this amazing opportunity she might have coming up in Japan, not even trying to hide it anymore. I just nodded and let her talk, waiting for the right moment. After dinner, we moved to the couch to watch TV. She was scrolling through Instagram the whole time, barely even pretending to watch the show. That's when I just couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed the remote, turned off the TV, and turned to face her. "How long have you been sleeping with Derek?" I asked point blank. Her head snapped up from her phone, and the look on her face, I'll never forget it. First shock, then this flash of anger, then this weird calculated look like she was figuring out the best way to play this. "What are you talking about?" She tried, but her voice was all shaky. Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. "Don't lie to me," I said, surprised at how calm I sounded when I felt like I was breaking apart inside. "I saw you coming out of the Hotel Marquis with him last week. I heard him on the phone with you today. I know he's paying you." She stared at me for what felt like forever. Then her whole demeanor changed. "Fine," she said, flipping her hair over her shoulder like we were discussing something as casual as the weather. "Yes, I've been seeing Derek. And yes, he gives me money sometimes. So what? He can afford to treat me better than you ever could." "So what?" I repeated, not believing what I was hearing. "So you've been cheating on me? With my boss?" She rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. "It's just business, babe. He pays for my time, I make him feel good. It doesn't have to change anything between us." I felt like I was in some kind of bizarre alternate reality. Was she seriously suggesting we just continue dating while she, what, prostituted herself to my boss? "Are you serious right now?" I was practically shouting. "You're basically admitting you're a—" "Careful," she cut me off, her eyes narrowing. "I'm entrepreneurial. I'm taking advantage of what I've got. Most guys would understand that." Most guys would understand their girlfriend sleeping with other men for money? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She shrugged, like we were discussing a minor disagreement about where to order takeout from. Derek's not the only one. There's a few guys who appreciate what I bring to the table enough to pay for it. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Like, physically sick. So all that talk about getting engaged, our future together? Oh, please, she laughed, and it was the coldest sound I've ever heard. You're cute, and you're stable. Good boyfriend material. But let's be real. You should be grateful I even gave you the time of day. Do you know how many men would die to be in your shoes? Get the fuck out, I said quietly. Excuse me? Get out, I yelled, jumping to my feet. Get your stuff and get the hell out of my apartment. She looked shocked, like she couldn't believe I was actually standing up for myself, like she expected me to just accept all this and be grateful for whatever scraps of attention she was willing to throw my way. You're making a huge mistake, she said, gathering her purse. You'll never find anyone like me again. Thank God for that, I said. I'd rather be alone than with a prostitute. She slammed the door on her way out. As soon as she was gone, I completely lost it. Punched a pillow so hard I think I sprained my wrist. Then just collapsed on the floor and sat there for hours, trying to process what had just happened. The worst part wasn't even the cheating. It was realizing that the woman I thought I loved, the woman I was ready to propose to, had never actually existed. The real Mia saw me as nothing but a convenience, a backup plan, someone to pay the bills while she chased richer guys. The next morning, she tried calling me like nothing had happened. I sent it straight to voicemail. Then she texted saying we needed to talk and that I was overreacting. Can you believe that? I caught her cheating on me with my boss, found out she was basically being paid for it, and I'm the one overreacting? I blocked her number right then and there. Couldn't deal with her trying to manipulate me anymore. But the worst was still ahead. I still had to go to work and face Derek, knowing what I knew. The thought of it made me physically ill, but I needed that job. Couldn't just quit without having something else lined up. So I dragged myself to the office, feeling like absolute garbage, knowing I was about to face the guy who'd been sleeping with my girlfriend behind my back. And somehow I had to act normal about it, at least until I could figure out my next move. The next few weeks at work were a special kind of torture. Every time Derek walked by my desk, I wanted to jump up and knock his perfect teeth down his throat. He acted completely normal, like he hadn't been banging my girlfriend behind my back and paying her for it. Actually, worse than normal, he seemed happier than usual, always whistling and smiling. Probably thought he'd gotten away with it. Meanwhile, Mia wouldn't stop trying to contact me. When she realized I'd blocked her number, she started emailing me. When I blocked her email, she started reaching out through friends. When that didn't work, she showed up at my apartment one night. I didn't let her in. Talked to her through the door like some kind of weirdo. She was crying, saying she'd made a terrible mistake and that she really did love me. Said Derek meant nothing to her. It was just about the money. Like that somehow made it better. I told her to leave before I called the cops. That's when she got nasty. Started screaming that I was a loser, that she'd only been with me because she felt sorry for me. Said Derek was twice the man I'd ever be. Said I'd never find anyone as hot as her willing to touch me. Real nice stuff. My neighbors definitely got an earful that night. After that lovely visit, I started looking for another job immediately. No way I could keep working under Derek knowing what I knew. Sent out resumes to like 20 different companies. It took about a month, but I finally got an offer from one of our competitors. Better pay, better benefits, and a boss who wasn't sleeping with my ex. I put in my 2 weeks' notice the same day. Derek seemed genuinely shocked when I told him I was leaving. Had the nerve to ask why I'd want to leave when I had such a promising future at the company. I just said I'd found a better opportunity and left it at that. Wasn't worth it to get into it with him. My last week at the company, I was cleaning out my desk when I overheard Derek talking to some of the other managers in the conference room. Door was cracked open, and I heard him bragging about his hot model girlfriend and how she was expensive but worth every penny. Said she was coming with him to Japan next month. It took everything in me not to walk in there and expose him in front of everyone. But I kept it together, finished packing my stuff, and left that toxic place behind for good. Fast forward about 3 months. My new job was going great. Better work environment, cooler projects, and people who actually seemed to respect each other. I was finally starting to feel like myself again, not constantly looking over my shoulder or questioning my own worth. Then came my 15-year high school reunion. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go. Social events weren't really my thing even before all the Mia drama, but some old friends from the baseball team convinced me it would be fun. While I was there, catching up with people and honestly having a decent time, I ran into this girl, Sophie's best friend. Sophie had been in my high school class. Tall, stunning, definitely the prettiest girl in our year. We were friendly back then, but never close. She was more of the artsy type, always sketching in notebooks, while I was just a regular sports and video games kind of guy. After high school, Sophie became a legitimate professional model, like the real deal, not whatever Mia pretended to be. I'd seen Sophie in actual magazines and commercials for big brands. Meanwhile, her best friend Jen had stayed local and become a kindergarten teacher. Jen and I got to talking about old times, and she kept giving me this weird smile like she knew something I didn't. When I mentioned Sophie, wondering where she was now, Jen's smile got even bigger. I know she's going to kill me for telling you this, Jen said, leaning in close like she was sharing some huge secret. But Sophie had the biggest crush on you in high school. Like, massive. She used to doodle your name in her sketchbooks. I just laughed. I mean, come on. Sophie? The girl who went on to be an actual Vogue spreads? Have a crush on regular old me? It seemed completely ridiculous. Even in high school, when I was the backup pitcher on a mediocre baseball team, Sophie was winning art contests and being scouted by modeling agencies. I don't think Sophie even remembered me, I told Jen, but she insisted. She literally asked me to check if you were at the reunion since she couldn't make it, Jen said. She's in Europe for work, doing some campaign for a luxury brand in Brussels. She specifically asked about you, wanted to know if you were still as cute as you were in calculus class. I spent the rest of the night thinking about what Jen had said. It was so unexpected. I won't lie. It felt good to know someone like Sophie was interested in me, especially after all Mia's BS about me being lucky to have her. The next day, on a complete whim, I decided to take a chance. Found Sophie on Instagram and sent her a message. Just something casual saying it was great to hear about her success, that Jen had mentioned we'd missed her at the reunion, and that it would be cool to catch up sometime. Then I waited and waited. 5 days went by with nothing. I'd pretty much forgotten about it, figured she was busy with her actual successful modeling career, when suddenly she replied. Her message was super enthusiastic, with lots of exclamation points and emojis. She seemed genuinely excited to hear from me. We started messaging back and forth, catching up on the past decade plus of our lives. Talked about high school, what we'd been doing since then, our jobs, families, everything. After a few days of constant messaging, Sophie suggested we switch to video calls. Said typing was getting tedious. That first video call was surreal. There I was, talking face to face with this woman whose face had been on billboards, and she was laughing at my dumb jokes like we were back in high school. She was so down to earth, so genuine. Nothing like Mia's calculated manipulation. The more we talked, the more I realized what a real connection felt like. She asked questions about my engineering job and actually listened to the answers. Never made me feel like I wasn't good enough. Was open about her own insecurities and struggles in the modeling industry. After a few weeks of talking almost daily, it started to feel like we were dating, even though we were separated by an ocean. I decided to just put it out there and asked, what exactly are we doing here? She smiled that incredible smile of hers and said, I'd like to think we're building something special. I've always regretted not telling you how I felt in high school. That was all I needed to hear. I asked if she wanted to make it official, and she said yes immediately. I was dating an actual, legitimate model who liked me for me, not for what I could provide or as a backup plan. When she suggested I visit her in Brussels while she finished her campaign, I didn't hesitate. Used some of my signing bonus from the new job to book a flight. Best decision I ever made. The trip was amazing. Sophie introduced me to everyone on her team, proudly calling me her boyfriend. She was so professional on set but would wink at me between shots. Nothing fake about her success. She worked her ass off and everyone respected her for it. I took tons of pictures during her photo shoot and posted some on my Instagram close friends story, completely forgetting that Mia was still on that list. I hardly ever used Instagram, so hadn't thought to block her there. Just a few hours later, I got a message from her. Who's that? Why are you playing groupie? With a laughing emoji. I calmly replied, that's my girlfriend. Nothing else. She didn't respond right away. I could see the typing indicator appear and disappear for like 10 minutes, like she was writing and rewriting her response. Finally, she just sent, sure. That's when I decided to twist the knife a little. I wrote back, if you thought you were out of my league, then Sophie is out of this world. How's Derek doing? Still making you earn those designer bags the hard way? I knew it would hurt. She read the message but didn't respond. Then I blocked her on Instagram too. It felt pretty damn good, but she came crawling back. Literally. One evening, months after blocking her everywhere, I got a knock on my door. I opened it, and there she was, standing in my hallway like some sad rom-com reject. Hey, she said, voice all soft and pitiful. I just stared. Can I come in? She tried again, shifting her weight like standing there was exhausting. No. She swallowed hard, clearly not expecting that. Pete, I made a mistake, okay? I see that now. I was stupid. I folded my arms, unimpressed. Yeah? About which part? The cheating? The lying? The part where you treated me like a walking ATM? Her eyes welled up, but I wasn't buying the act. You were the only guy who actually wanted something real with me. Do you know what it's been like out there? Every guy I date just, she hesitated, trying to make herself sound tragic, uses me. No one actually cares about me the way you did. You saw me for who I really am. I let out a short laugh. Yeah, and that's exactly why I walked away. She sniffled. Please, Pete, just give me another chance. I swear I've changed. I miss us. You miss being treated like a human instead of a transaction, I corrected. But that's not my problem anymore. She took a shaky breath, probably expecting me to cave. When I didn't, she tried to act like she still had some upper hand. So what? You're really happy with her? You think she's better than me? I let out a short laugh. You already saw the answer to that, didn't you? That's why you're here. Her eyes flickered with something. Jealousy? Regret? Maybe both. You had your shot, I continued, stepping back into the doorway. And you blew it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a FaceTime date with an actual model who sees my worth without a price tag attached. Mia opened her mouth like she wanted to say something. Maybe one last desperate attempt, but I didn't stick around to hear it. I shut the door in her face, locked it, and didn't look back. About a week later, I found out through a former coworker that Derek got fired for sexual harassment. Apparently, he tried his cash for company arrangement with the wrong woman. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. While Sophie and I have been dating happily since that trip to Brussels, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm thinking about proposing before the end of the year. And this time, it's with a woman who actually deserves it. Someone who sees my value and doesn't make me feel lucky just to be with her. Sometimes the people who think they're better than everyone else are the ones who end up alone. And sometimes the guy who gets treated like crap finally catches a break. So that's my story, Reddit. Still feels weird typing it all out, but also kind of therapeutic. Thanks for reading my novel-length post. If you're dealing with someone like Mia, just know there's better people out there who will appreciate you for who you are, not what you can give them.